The Justice Society is more important and special than you may know. These days, they're looked at as the older heroes, and while they are, they also bear the distinction of being the first superhero team, officially coming together in All-Star Comics number 3 in 1940. But there's more to it than that. This team is also an intercompany crossover. I'm Sasha, this is Casually Comics, it's time to go back to the golden age. Now, when we're talking about past eras of comics and certain characters, it can be easy to apply the current terminology to some of them. For example, talking about the JSA and using DC Comics, regardless of how far back you go, because those characters do come under the DC Comics umbrella. And the same can be said for many characters who end up absorbed into DC. Like the quality ones, the faucet ones. I sometimes do this too for ease of communication. But there are times when smoothing it down like that can remove some of the complexities. And that can remove some of the layers that show how fascinating some of these historical happenings have been. Such is the case with the creation of the JSA. Now we're gonna cliff note some of this, but to bare bones the environment. All-Star Comics was originally published by All American Comics, which had been founded in part by MC Gaines. I've seen conflicting dates on the founding. It's in between 1938 and 1939, but 1939 is when the first comic book they start publishing, All American Comics, takes off. That's their flagship comic. But before that, there were some newspaper strips. Now, All American Comics would end up merging with National Comics in 1946, which by that point had already combined with Detective Comics Inc., which is a bit of another story. By 1946, Gaines wanted out, and he actually started to get out in 1944. Out of that specific company, not out of comics in general. There are several factors. One that often gets cited is that he knew that the superhero fad was kind of fading, which was the case. The internal relations of the group was also starting to break down. Now, he would go on to found EC Comics, which would rise in popularity, publishing horror comics, Mad Magazine. The horror avenue would later be crushed by the coming of the Comics Code, that had language therein that specifically targeted certain genres and certain publishers. There's also a lot going on here in that behind the scenes, and sometimes less behind the scenes, there's some organized crime elements, a lot of that moving through publishing, the books, the pulps, those kind of things. It's a really fascinating history. Now, since the relations were starting to break down, Gaines is bought out by Jack Leibowitz and Harry Donfeld, who had been working together at National Allied Publications, whom he was working with. While relations were good, was when you would see all the crossing of characters across books. That really helped facilitate it. After the merger in 1946, the company became National Comics Publications Inc., and were eventually rebranded as DC in 1977. However, All-Star Comics comes to us before that, starting in the time when relations were good, and the companies were happily sharing their characters. In fact, All-Star Comics number 1 has some characters from National Comics in it, having solo stories. You have Hourman, the Spectre, and Sandman. Now, the All-Star Comics book was an anthology, and even after the team is formed, it largely still remains that way. I shall explain when we get to it. Now, this ease of sharing is part of why it's so easy to lump all of this back together under the DC label when looking back at it. But in actuality, it's pretty cool that it was able to come together as it did. And it would have been something that was fairly exciting for fans to see. Characters not normally together in one book and interacting. You're starting to get a sense of a shared universe, something that now is a staple of the superhero genre. Now, the JSA was created by writer Gardner Fox, and Gardner Fox would come back to the concept decades later and help create the Justice League. So this original team is directly linked historically on a meta level, as well as they will be inside on a narrative level later on. But as for the JSA, what was their first outing like? Who was there? Well, let's take a look. Side note, I kind of feel bad for All-Star Comics issues 1 and 2. They do not get the same love and reprinting as issue 3. They just don't have the same cachet. And while they don't have a superhero team debuting inside them, it just makes it seem like All-Star Comics 1 and 2 don't exist. Now, the premise for All-Star Comics 3 is the first meeting of the JSA. It's written largely by Gardner Fox with multiple artists, Everett E. Hibbert starting it off. Hibbert also illustrated the cover. I say for the most part because the meeting itself is an actual frame story. It comes in at the start, there are some interludes, and then it wraps it up at the end. So for this first meeting, roll call. From National Comics, we have Sandman, Hourman, Dr. Fate, and the Spectre. And from All American Comics, we have The Flash, Green Lantern, the Atom, and Hawkman. Johnny Thunder is there too. He'll be an honorary member. He's also from All American Comics because he debuted in Flash number 1. And we get this cute meta nod at the opening. It's a panel showing that these characters have published stories in their own universe, their own comics. Poor Johnny Thunder has been left out of the meeting. And is he sore? The Flash, Spectre, Hawkman, all members of the Justice Society. Say you'd think those guys would invite me, but no, nobody ever thinks about me. He said the word, say you. There's a panel that shows that say you equals CEI-U, which is how he summons his Thunderbolt. They will regularly just spell it as an English word and then add a note like that. Now, Johnny Thunder at this point knows he has a Thunderbolt, but he's not exactly interacting with him the same way he will in later stories. The Thunderbolt is essentially a genie that grants him wishes, but there's usually some kind of twist. They don't quite go right. right. It was bonded to him as a child after he was kidnapped and forced to participate in a sacred ritual. But when he says, say you, things happen. And here he wished that he was going to the meeting, and so he finds himself on his way there next to Dr. Fate. They're holding it at a hotel, but that's public, so the Sandman just gassed everyone. So you're the chap that goes around putting people to sleep. Why did you put these people to sleep? Is the meeting a secret?
Exactly. Look out. Here comes another friend of ours.
You know, the Sandman's pretty chill about Johnny being there, seeing as how this was gas-worthy. I think he just wants to shoot people with sleeping gas. We get intros for each character, as Johnny even wishes some of them are there faster. Johnny is here for comic relief, so if you don't find Johnny funny, I'm sorry. If you do, huzzah! Right, Kenny? One thing we just don't allow is boasting. We don't like swell heads. I ain't got a swelled head, it's a small head, look. What was worth knocking everybody out? The team are getting together to have dinner. And they decide that since they're all there and Johnny's there too, well, just let him stay. And after he wishes the dinner away and then wishes in a fancier one after, they ask him what can he contribute, aside from shenanigans. And he has an idea. What if they all share exciting stories? The Flash is down and the Atom is here to provide some exposition.
That's a good idea, but where's Superman, Batman, and Robin? They'd have some good stories to tell.
Al's gonna pull his mask up to eat, right? Also, this mention of Batman, Superman, and Robin is significant because it furthers that feeling of a shared universe. They also mention the OG Red Tornado, Ma Hunkle, but we're gonna see her in a little bit. Well, with none of those people there, who's gonna go first? Well, that's gonna go the fastest man in any world. He gets to go first. So the way this first issue functions is that each one of them is going to tell a story. Gardner Fox writes or co-writes most of them, but the individual segments have the artists, at least for this one, who are working on the characters in the other books. So you're getting the character's artist on the character inside this issue. So you get a sense of what their adventures actually look like, and I think that's pretty cool. This format also makes it seem like they're just hanging out and decompressing. That will change, but it's a nice vibe for this intro. So to the stories. I know you want to know. The Flash, who starts out and also sets up the idea that we're past the secret identity phase for most people, because he's very open about it, which also furthers the idea that there's a lot of trust here. And I'll stop going so fast for the Flash so that we can understand all the nuances. One day last summer, Joan Williams and I were dining in the Sandglass Club. I was in street clothes and using my regular name, which is, as you know, Jay Garrick. Side note, I've been doing a bunch of shorts about how later on they retconned Jay's name to being Jason. So just every time in the Golden Age, when I see him just come out full chested and go, it's Jay, it just makes me smile. Yes, Jay can be a nickname for Jason, but this is just such an obvious and unnecessary retcon. Jay, look, here comes Mary Rogers. Her father is the one who's looking for that buried treasure, isn't he? So this story is Wreck of the Santa Joanna. It's written by Gardner Fox with art by Hibbard. Now Joan's friend or acquaintance, Mary Rogers, her father is looking for this lost sunken treasure, Aztec gold. And they've been having a little trouble. There are these thugs who are messing with them. They're stealing their stuff. They're making it very difficult, but at the same time they're hanging around, seemingly also hoping that they'll lead them to it. Joan, who knows that Jay is the Flash, asks him if he can look into it. And he says no, he's busy, but then he does anyway. He changes his mind. He's like, actually, I'm not that busy. He even decides to go look for the ship himself before he even goes to help Mary's dad. He does find it, and then he's attacked by a tiger shark.
Am I seeing things, or wasn't there a nice juicy man just here?
Round and round we went. Faster, faster.
What have I got a hold of, or has he got a hold of me?
So long, Sharky, old kid. Old kid, see you in the aquarium.
Mama, help, Mama.
Mama. The man is fast. This story has an overall lighthearted tone. It's a lot of fun and low-key just Jay showing off. He helps Mary's father get the gold by bringing the ship there by spinning the propeller himself. He also humiliates the rival crew. And at one point he brings their ship up to the Arctic and it looks like he's just gonna slam it into an iceberg. I might as well finish my start. I'll get the gold for Rogers and save him a lot of trouble. Jay's whole energy in this story is, well, got nothing better to do. So he's able to get the gold and make it back to meet Joan and Mary later on and give the good news, a letter from her father. He found the treasure. Joan is slightly salty that he didn't bring her with him. Now listen, Joan, there was a lot of underwater back and forth on this adventure. Just be glad you got to skip the water level. Next up is the Hawkman story, The Men Who Could Live in Fire. It's also by Fox, but has art by Moldoff. And right away, you can see just the shift in the art style. Now, Carter Hall is at a meeting of the Science Club in New York when he bumps into Shayera. She's off to investigate some tales that she's heard of happenings near Mount Krakatoa, strange sights coming from the volcano. Carter is wishing her luck and walking her home when suddenly she's attacked. It's by someone who claims that she's meddling with mysteries that she doesn't understand, and that Mazda the Great has ordered her death. His alter ego doesn't have anything mild in the title, so he just punches that person in the face. We'll first get to see Shayera appear as Hawk Girl in All-Star Comics 5. Luckily, I was on him before he could drive the blade home. Spoke out of turn a little, didn't you? The man has a warning that the fire ghost will get her. She needs to stay away. She tells Carter to let him go, which he does, and she's undeterred. Nearly knifed, it was Tuesday. Knowing that she's definitely going, Carter decides to fly ahead and check it out. And he brings the Hammer of Thor with him. Always a good choice. When he gets to the mountain, he does indeed see fire people. And so he goes back to tell Shayera what he found as Hawkman. I like that she just calls him Hawk. It's got good nickname energy. She was surprised to see me that evening. Ooh, the Hawk. So you paid a visit to the fire ghosts already, and it's true? They live in fire and flame?
Yes, they have terrible power. We'll have to get asbestos clothing.
That way we can dye of something else. Her asbestos outfit is a dress, because fashion. Also, are his red trunks asbestos as well? You want to protect that area, Hawkman. When they go to investigate, they are attacked by the fire people and captured. They're taken to Mazda, who's hiding all kinds of car plants. No, it's actually that he's got this device that's feeding off the volcano that has enough power that he could use it to destroy the earth. He's created a volcanic weapon of mass destruction. Well, Hawkman can't have that. Thank goodness he brought the hammer of Thor. He uses this to destroy the generator. And then he kills Mazda, who was gonna kill him first, but he hurls him into the volcano, and then him and Shire get out before it erupts, and outside they meet the same man who had attacked her, and he reveals the secret as he's dying. He's just dying for reasons.
They say he was caught in the explosion, but he looks fine.
His time in the plot and story is over, so he figured might as well just die. He tells her that Mazda wanted to make this weapon to make the people a political power, and Shire laments that no one is going to believe this. No one will believe me. What shall I do?
Tell them there's a lot of natives' tales. They'll never know the difference.
That's problematic, Carter, but I can definitely also see people just believing it. Next to the Spectre, the story, it's by Jerry Siegel and Gardner Fox, with art by Bernard Bailey. This one has strong horror energy that's matched with intense whimsy. Also, Corrigan does not go out of his way to identify himself. This story opens with a series of murders, and they're all committed on a full moon and cast in ominous shadow. No, it's not a werewolf, that'd be too easy. Just the way they're drawn, there is a creepy energy to it. Now, for a month, the murders cease, but on the next full moon, they start up again, and so Corrigan is placed on the case.
I left headquarters then. For some reason, I walked toward the central building, waiting. Ready. For what? As I passed near the building, I was unaware that above me, a pair of eyes were watching me. Had I but looked up, I would have seen a statue starting to climb down from its pedestal. Still unaware of what was happening, I failed to see a bestial bronze face sneering at me.
This statue tries to murder him by throwing him into a wall. He only saves himself because he's the Spectre, so he's able to phase through it. After he transforms, then he comes to see what's going on. He stops the creature from killing again, and then it reveals itself to be the Mighty.
Untold ages ago, I roamed the earth in my search for violent death. Then satiated, I went off to a distant corner of the universe for a brief sleep. But now I thirst for death, so I am back to snatch what I desire. In that case, you're going back to your corner. You're not wanted here.
Responds by proposing a contest. Whoever gets the red moonstone of Isgard Teal first gets to lay claim to the earth. Loser leaves. For some reason, the Spectre agrees to this, and they're off. They have a race in space, and this is where the whimsy and fun comes in. You get to see things like the Spectre riding through space on a star. He also has to fight a dragon once he gets near the moonstone. And ultimately, he does win, but then goes back on his word, and that makes the Spectre angry.
There's nothing more I despise than someone who goes back on his word. I leaped at We battled mightily using trees, lampposts, whatever we could get our hands on as weapons. Break your word to me, will you? I beat him down by superior strength. Now I'll give you a fate you deserve. Mercy! Mercy!
The Spectre forces him back to where he was hiding as a statue, and then once he is placed, he makes him small and sucks his soul from him, places it inside of the moonstone, and sends it hurling into space. They don't show everybody's reaction to this story, potentially for a good reason. Although I'm sure Green Lantern approves. We know that he loves throwing his enemies into space. Can say hi to Grundy. Actually, this is before Grundy. Did this inspire Alan? He's like taking notes. Hurl enemies into space. Hourman gets the next story, The Durant Diamond Collection by Ken Fitch and Gardner Fox, with art also by Bailey. And when he introduces himself, he misses out on the opportunity to call him TikTok Tyler. Those original adventure comics were really trying to make the nickname TikTok happen for him for a bit. Didn't happen, and he didn't help. The intro to this one also just makes me laugh because his boss is so inappropriate with what he's asking him to do. It is outside the parameters of his job.
There's a costume ball at the Durant estate tonight. I want you to take my niece.
But sir, I haven't a costume. Besides, what could I go as?
What difference does it make what you go as? Nobody will look at you. They'll be more interested in seeing the Durant Diamond Collection.
I decided to have some fun with the boss, and so I suggested, then perhaps I could go as the Hourman.
I give Rex that voice because as Rex, he's supposed to be meeker than when he takes Miraclo, and then he gets kind of, more confident and stuff. The Hourman. Here, I'll pay for the costume. You, the Hourman. That's Regina. That's the niece.
No, her uncle is paying employees to take her out.
Now, when they get to this diamond showcase / costume party, Rex is surprised to see that other people are also dressed as Hourman. But one of them talks to him about how he needs to move away from the girl. They need to get into place. And so he realizes that there's some kind of crime afoot. And so he goes and he pops one of his Miraclo pills and he's ready to go. He needs to do that so he can have power for an hour.
Aren't they beautiful? They must be worth a king's ransom.
They're insured, I hope.
Yes, sir, and we're here as double protection.
Way to play it cool, Rex. Why don't you ask next how many exits are in the building?
Yes, and when does your shift end?
Suddenly, a thought entered my mind.
I get it now. Those crooks are after the diamonds, and they intend to blame it on the Hourman.
This is your brain on Miraclo. Not even once. Took him a long time to get to there with all the clues presented. Rex is unable to stop the crime, and now it looks like he's one of the robbers. So he has to prove that he's innocent. And at the start, this may seem like it's going in the direction you expect, which it was for me, until Rex got shot in the head. But he's fine, it's only a flesh wound. He's actually having a great time, and I quote, "This is fun." It is said that Miraclo means that he doesn't really feel pain, because he's often getting very injured in these stories, getting hit by cars, and this one he got shot. Years later, they're gonna add an addiction factor to the Miraclo, and as you can see from its base attributes, even in the golden age, they don't have to go far. It's not even a leap, it's a step. Now, as for what this crime was really about, Durant, who owned the diamond collection, he was down on his luck. He was faking the robbery for the insurance money. And he would have gotten away with it if it weren't for... Now, Sandman is about to go when all of a sudden the red tornado bursts in for a comedic interlude. She can't stay, though, because on the way up, she tore her pants. The Flash shouldn't be laughing so much. His pants are miscolored as green in one of these panels. Now onto the Sandman, with his story Dr. Faversham, which is by Gardner Fox, and it seems like it's by Chad Grothkopf, but there are a couple of people credited, but I saw Grothkopf independently a couple times. But they also list Hibbert and Moldov. Sometimes with crediting in the Golden Age, it can get a bit dicey.
Well, gentlemen, as you know, I have no superhuman abilities. I'm just an ordinary fellow who doesn't like crime or criminals. So I invented the gas gun and adopted the identity of the Sandman. Thus equipped, I do my best to aid justice.
Are you shading Rex? Are you trying to say that he has a problem? Wait till the Bronze Age. Also, I see that he forgot that the atom is there. That's going to add to the Adams complex. It also amuses me that for the ones who identify their secret identities, who have partners, they just dox them too. They're like, I'm Wesley Dodds, and I was out with Diane Belmont. Like, did you ask? Did you ask if she wants everybody to know? With Wes and Diane, probably. They have a very solid relationship, even in this era. They're out driving when off in the distance they see a giant who suddenly just falls down and collapses, dead. They notify the authorities, and the next day they hear about a mysterious bag of human flesh found with the man's bones inside. But that was miles away from the giant they saw die. This is interesting to the Sandman, so he decides he's on the case.
Sorry, lady, I'm in a hurry. My apologies to you too, but I'm in a mighty big hurry.
Sandman is very liberal with this gas gun, but still takes the time to be polite. Now, Sandman remembers about a disgraced doctor named Dr. Faversham, who is experimenting with pituitary glands. So Wesley and Diana decide to go back to the body they found, but when they get there, there's just flesh. As they look for Faversham, they start to see more and more horrifying creatures. A giant cat, a giant rat, and they fall down dead. It's all too much for Diane. It is a lot of a lot. So Wes leaves her with the gun and then decides to go on ahead. When he comes across a house and he finds a victim, this story has such horror vibes. Wouldn't this be like a great indie horror game or something? I don't need the story retold in the modern era. I'd love a horror game of it though. So fun.
I heard you say Faversham's name. It's him that did this to me and to others, insuring us and collecting when he killed us.
So that was his purpose. But why didn't he simply kill you?
He experimented on those others, lowered their pituitary glands with a secret formula, made them giants in a few hours, freed them. They wandered about dazed. When the drug wore off, their skins were stretched, but their bones weren't. They fell apart.
Dr. Faversham has earned the title of Mad Doctor, which the Sandman calls him. He's disgusting. But he's defeated, and so the Sandman runs off to tell Diane what happened, and I love this panel so much.
Case all cleared up. It was Faversham. He insured those men and killed them. Used a secret formula to make them big. Their small bodies wouldn't stand it. And they died.
Horrible. Just the way he's running to the car, he looks so happy. Like, Diane, you won't believe it's body horror. Maybe Dr. Fate will have something a tad less horrific. His tale is The Box from Samothrace by Fox with art by Howard Sherman.
As you know, I am not human. I never was a child. I had no youth. The elder gods created me, just as I am now, and placed me here on Earth to fight evil sorcery.
Dr. Fate has an interesting backstory. For a while, he did not have the Kent Nelson component to it. So that's the backstory we're working with at this point. Dr. Fate is, essentially. Now, Inza, who Fate describes as his human companion in this story, is given a mysterious box when she goes to an antique bookstore. It's an antique store / bookstore. They go back and forth. She gets a mystery box. And it's this strange woman who gives it to her. Now, when she gets home, there are some Pandora's box vibes here. She opens the box and then just dust flies in her face. It makes her dream of an Egyptian priestess who commands her to get Fate, which she does.
I walked through the wall.
Danger on the coast of the Moors. Something awful. I don't know what it is.
We'll go together. Come.
Now, you may have noticed something about the relationships in this comic, which is that a lot of them are fairly egalitarian for the time. This is the golden age, so in a lot of cases, the partnership dynamics are more even. Not all the time, and they're still of their era, but they're definitely more so than they will be post-Code. Now, this going to get Dr. Fate, it was a trap. They've been led to fight a ghost army, and Fate realizes that Inza has been drugged and coerced. He says that there's an evil wizard who's out to destroy them, although I'm pretty sure based on what's happening, it's more him. She's just being used. Since Inza is being influenced, he hypnotizes her to sleep and goes off in search of his foe, starting at the old bookshop/antique store.
As I glanced about, I saw a horrible thing creep along the floor. An entity from the seabeds of the Nile. Truly, this man is a mighty sorcerer.
Okay, yes, there's tentacles. It's coming in a dark room across the floor. But wait till you see it from the front. Look at its googly eyes, little googly eyes of menace.
I concentrated my brain on the entity, and it quickly disappeared. I begin to see it all now. The man who caused this entity to appear brought it up from his mind. Now I know his weapons. All I have to do is find him.
And find him he does. Now this wizard is summoning things from his mind, and so Dr. Fate gets to fight some unicorns. But when the fight turns physical, it's hand to hand. Dr. Fate breaks his neck, slams him against a wall.
He had broken his neck, was dying, yet he spoke a little before his soul went west.
I caused Inza to see an antique shop where there was only an empty store. I caused her to see the Egyptian princess twice. Thought if I could defeat you, I'd be invincible.
Dr. Fate dissolves him after this because he knows you can't be too careful. And so the spell is broken. Johnny's supposed to go next, but he has to break the fourth wall first. Aw, shucks. I'm kind of modest, so the editors have written a story about something that happened to me. That's on the next 2 pages. After that, we'll hear from the Atom. Johnny's story is indeed a prose story. It's written by Evelyn Gaines, who is Gaines' niece. It's called Guarding an Heiress. And it's a really solid story. It's got some decent atmosphere. Knock, knock, went Johnny Thunder's knuckles against the door of Daisy Darling's house. The sound of Daisy's laughter drifted out to Johnny as he stood waiting on the porch, hat in one hand, a bouquet of roses in the other. Oh, Edgar. Daisy's voice dripped honey. You do say the sweetest things. Next minute, Daisy's smiling face was in the doorway. But at sight of Johnny, the smile vanished. I told you, she said darkly, that you're not welcome here. This story, like many for Johnny, is about a series of misadventures, and this one has a romantic edge. He's trying to get with Daisy, but she just does not want. And it goes places. Like, Johnny decides to practice romance, and so he sees a mannequin and decides that he can practice on that mannequin, but when he gets it, there's actually a kidnapped heiress inside. I'm going to leave this story because I'm more focused on the comic outing so we can just see the pairing of the art and the story, but it's definitely worth reading and it adds value to the experience. You're taking even more time. It's like how you should read the pirate story inside the Watchmen. It adds to everything. It's also fascinating to see how Johnny's humor translates from the comic panels to the prose. It's a nice change of pace. It breaks things up. We need that break before we get to the Atom. The Atom story is The Brooklyn Murder Trust by Bill O'Connor with art by Ben Flinton. And the Atom also has no powers, thanks Sandman. He also has a bit of a complex. He talks about it. You probably all know that I'm called the Atom because I'm so small, and I'm the only one of us who does not have supernatural powers. In everyday life, I'm Al Pratt, a quiet sophomore at Calvin College. Sandman's powers aren't supernatural. Where's the editor? Sheldon, where are you? Al Pratt has a lot of I'll show them all energy in his stories because people pick on him for being small, but these are also directed at his love interest. Now in this story, he's out on a class geology trip when he just stumbles across the Brooklyn Murder Trust. He overhears their plan to rob an armored car and sets out to stop it. He's surprised when he's following them, they let the armored car pass and instead go for the truck behind it. So he tries to jump on top, but jumping onto moving cars is hard, and so he knocks himself out. So the robbery goes on, and the Atom is found by his love interest, Mary James, who I'm not sure how they're getting away with pretending does not recognize that the tiny classmate that she makes fun of is also the tiny superhero she's in love with. Tiny is a bit too small sounding. Diminutive. It's all right, I'll be a short king. They don't seem to like this Al Pratt very much. What's the matter with him? Oh, I guess he's all right, but he's such a weak sister at times that he gets in my hair. The Atom has one of those secret identities where he's hiding how strong he is, even though a significant portion of his backstory is him getting ripped and swole. He must wear big clothes like Bullet Man. Now the Atom spots the robbery truck, and so he gets back into that plot. You know, it's understandable it took him a while. He may have a concussion. This time, he makes the truck. Hello, boys. Do you want my company?
So is that my company, sweethearts? Well, isn't that too bad? Surprised to see me, boys?
Whoa! Who's this guy?
Stop saying boys. I can't say it in a non-saucy way. Look out, boys. Sorry, sweethearts. Come and get it, boys. I can't. So the Atom stops the robbery and take that, Mary, and yeah. There's another interlude where the Society gets a letter from the FBI and the Flash goes to check it out because he's so fast he can go and come back and he's going to miss the Green Lantern story. But as time goes on, the Green Lantern and the Flash are set up as pretty good friends, so I like to imagine that he's heard already. Green Lantern's story is Police Commissioner Mason. It's written by Gardner Fox with art by Martin Ordell. This one I had a bit of a harder time tracking the writer for, so grain of salt. Johnny talks the Green Lantern up so hard, which is understandable. He was a very big deal at the time. Thanks for the introduction, Johnny. But there's one thing you didn't mention. This ring must touch the lantern once every 24 hours to retain its potency. I used the ring to help stamp out evil, and subsequently, I became known as the Green Lantern. His tale is a straight-up crime story. There's a crime spree going on, and it's undermining public confidence in the Police Commissioner Mason. There are calls to have him replaced with somebody called Lacey, calls for reform. However, all of this is being funded by a criminal element, and Mason is even framed for bribery. Journalists called in advance, a staged handoff, and as a result, the people demand change, and Lacey is made commissioner. And after that, crime plummets. The people are happy, but what they don't see is that gambling and racketeering way up. Alan is by this point a radio engineer, so he's had his career shift, and he decides to investigate the goings-on as Green Lantern. I was ready once more to step into my other role as the Green Lantern, and I shall shed my light upon dark evil, for the dark things cannot stand the light of the Green Lantern. He goes and enlists the aid of a columnist that he knows and is friends with, Pryor. He asks if he thinks that Mason is guilty, to which he says that no, he doesn't, and so he tells him to write a column to that effect and dictates what it should say to draw criminal attention. You know who would have jumped at a chance to write an article like this? Charles McNider, Dr. Midnight. But we're not at the point where the universes are that interconnected yet. But now I kind of want to have this story retold and have that be an element, because Dr. Midnight wrote a crime column after he was blinded. Now when the goons get the columnist's house, who's waiting for them? Green Lantern. Come here. Just like two castanets. I hit the other thug once. He stood there with a stupid expression on his face, and then folded up like an accordion. He then hypno-tortures the last guy to get the info he wants. Golden Age Alan Scott is this fascinating blend of super intense with no chill, but also slightly humorous and snarky. Alan does get knocked out in the story once. He gets hit with a wooden club, and his weakness is wood. But unless he's shielded all the time, getting hit in the back of the head with a club will knock a lot of people out. And there he learns for certain that it was, Legasp, Lacey planned it all. Are we shocked? The Green Lantern says that Pryor is going to expose everything at the radio studio. And Lacey says that he's the police commissioner. He'll go stop that broadcast. Now, of course, Green Lantern escapes. And as he makes his way back, his friend is being threatened. They're going to arrest him on false charges, but they're also about to go live. And so we get a very dramatic ending where Alan uses his will to force a confession out of Lacey on air. That's dark and hardcore. Well, that's my story. Of course, Lacey couldn't know that Paul Pryor and I had planned it all that way. It was the end of Lacey, and incidentally, the end of this story. I feel like people need to stand and clap. The Flash breaks this dramatic moment when he returns. The FBI chief wants to see them all together, and they decide next Tuesday. I hope it wasn't anything pressing. Murder spree, Flash, need all of you. Earliest we can do is next week. And that's the end of this adventure, and there's a thank you from the editor. It's about how well issues 1 and 2 did, and they say they're going to turn the book into a bi-monthly book instead of quarterly, which it will become for a bit, but it's going to have to go back to quarterly because of paper shortages, but then after it'll become bi-monthly again. So it goes back to being bi-monthly in April of 1946. Next issue will have all the characters on different aspects of the same case. This is kind of going to become one of Gardner Fox's staples, having the characters break off and have these different adventures. In some of them, it's going to be very directly linked, and sometimes it's going to be a bit more pulled back. Sometimes it's going to be a surprise how they connect, but that's essentially going to be the format. You're going to get to see a frame a lot of the time, some individual pieces, and then coming back together. And sometimes some overarching plots will move in that way too. And you'll continue to have the different artists and the like. All-Star Comics number 3 is a very significant book, as is the birth of the JSA. Not only is the first superhero team, but also Wonder Woman debuts. She's tested out here in issue 8. Issue 36 is the first time you see Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman working together. Only a little as part of a team, but still. We get the Injustice Society in issue 37. That's under Kanigher after Fox had left the book. It's all very fascinating. There's also an era where you'll see some of the characters pulled out because Gaines is pulling back. This is before he ends up selling his stake and then everything has to come back together. But there's an era where all of a sudden people will just be off and they'll be replaced. There are even a few issues where some stories are redrawn. Like in issue 26, you can see that Green Lantern is drawn holding Starman's rod because it was originally going to be a Starman story. And I know because of later retcons, some of you are just laughing at the phrase Green Lantern holding Starman's rod. Don't worry, I am too, but keep it on the inside. So there were periods where this got a little messy. But because now people associate all these characters together, it's easy to miss those kinds of tensions and just lump it all under DC Comics history, when really this is a period where it's all kind of coming together and being figured out. This book is just fascinating, and it encapsulates so much what was happening throughout the 40s and into the early 50s, as the last issue was in 1951, which is also the year they'll give for the Flash retiring when they mention it in later stories, like when he comes back in the Silver Age. The All-Star book is brought back decades after its cancellation and continues the original numbering. Just in general, I think that I like this intro issue as for meeting the team a bit more than the Justice Leagues, when they're introduced in The Brave and the Bold, when they take on Starro, and not just because Snapper Carr is there. That story is tighter and presents the idea that the team needs to come together to protect the Earth, that they're necessary to guard against these big threats, and that's why they have to come together. But this one is just really fun and sells the idea that they're friends who hang out. You also get so many stories in this, and you get a real sense of each character as a result. And because they're all essentially just chilling and they know each other's identities for the most part, they seem very close. You also get to see a host of art styles, and the universe is coming together, which while now commonplace, at the time would have been quite novel and significant. It's got this Decameron or Canterbury Tales vibe, or Hyperion if you want to go later, although that would be after. This series is something new, and it's trying something different, and it really lands in my opinion. Some stories are stronger than others, but I can see that also varying from person to person of which they think those are. I personally really like the Spectres, the Sandmans, the Flashes, also Green Lanterns, but miles will vary. There's a lot of detail in these stories. I really had to cliff notes over them. They're worth reading individually. Some of them, most of them, could end up being their own short episodes. I just wanted to showcase a bit more from this issue and from this era because it can be a bit of a sentence, a footnote. They were the first team, move on. Also, since that time, there have been other stories that happen in narrative chronologically beforehand, even though this is the first chronological metatextual story. But then there are some inside that say, oh, they actually met here. Those ones try to add a bit more gravitas to the moment. Something more than, let's get together and eat and talk. 2025 is another year one retelling, which does have some very strong atmosphere and drama. So far, time of recording, I'm really enjoying it. But there's a charm to this first story in All-Star Comics 3 that's unique. It really just showcases some of the strengths of the Golden Age, the different genres, tones, how it can pivot, how it can just be so imaginative and take so many risks. Like, oh, we're breaking the fourth wall now. Now we're having interludes. Now we're having different artists. It's just going for it. It's a memorable outing, and it has been reprinted. Yet again, time of recording in DC's finest. Although I have to say, I do tend to prefer the original scans for these because sometimes with the digital recolorings, particularly when you get back to the Golden Age, lots of the nuances of the inking can at times be lost. I like this story, but of course all these are just my thoughts and I want to hear yours. I can also see not liking it. It is very of its time. Some people don't like that Golden Age type of storytelling. Some people don't like these art styles. Some people just find these stories childish. Different strokes for different folks, and I want to hear your thoughts. So please do all the YouTube things, like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Hype if it's still there. Thanks so much for taking some time to spend discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.